Last week, a panel of judges ruled North Carolina's new congressional maps will stand for the 2020 election after the old ones were found to be the result of partisan gerrymandering. Under the old map on top, Republicans held a 10-seat to 3 advantage, despite winning less than 51% of the votes in 2018. In the new setup on the bottom, Republicans still hold an advantage, but Democrats are expected to pick up 2 seats to make the margin 8-5. Nick Ochsner joins me now to help us understand the implications of the change. He's the investigative executive producer at our Charlotte affiliate, WBTV. Nick, what impact is the new map having on North Carolina's congressional races?
Yeah, well, the biggest one, obviously, is the one you just pointed out, being the likely pickup of 2 Democratic seats in North Carolina. The other thing, though, is it's really set a new benchmark and a new standard for court influence on how the General Assembly will draw future congressional maps going forward. The process that led to these new maps being changed was pretty novel, first of its kind.
And these maps will only be used one time for the 2020 election. So what happens after that?
Yeah, well, after that, we'll have to draw more maps for the 2022 election because we're going to have the census. North Carolina is expected to pick up another congressional seat. We've had a big population gain here in the state in the last 10 years. So we're expected to add yet another congressional seat. With that will be another round of congressional map drawing by the North Carolina General Assembly. And again, you could expect that they'll draw the maps moving forward after 2020 in a manner similar to how they drew these new maps in an attempt to try to avoid future court challenges.
How do you think things could be different depending on which party takes control of the redistricting process?
Sure, that's a big question, right? Of course, the 2020 legislative races being very tightly watched in North Carolina, and lawmakers here in the state actually just had to redraw legislative maps from a different court case and court challenge last month, too. That being said, the control of the General Assembly is not expected to flip from Republicans right now currently control both the House and the Senate. So it's not expected to change hands to the Democrats. That being said, too, it's also possible that Democrats could make surprise gains in the House, more likely maybe the Senate. But if the Democrats take control, obviously these maps would change to maybe a 10-5 Democrat advantage. But for right now, it's not expected to happen, and so likely you'll see Republicans drawing more maps in the same way that they did this year.
And when you talk about the issues, Nick, is either party making redistricting an issue in the upcoming election?
Yeah, that's been a big issue for the Democrats. In 2018, the Democrats launched a big campaign, big effort to try to retake the state House and Senate. They were effective, not at taking the majority, but eliminating the Republican supermajority, veto-proof majority. Democrats are obviously making map drawing again a plank as they try to take control of either or and the House and Senate, North Carolina House and Senate again as they move into 2020.
While I have you here, Nick, I want to ask you about the state of North Carolina's Senate race. We just had on Larry Sabato. He was talking about the race being a toss-up right now. You've got incumbent Republican Thom Tillis finishing up his first term. Does he look vulnerable in 2020?
Absolutely, he looks vulnerable by any measure that you put out there. The biggest advantage that Senator Tillis has going for him right now, though, is the recent withdrawal or announcement that he wasn't going to run from a primary challenger. Garland Tucker, a businessman from Raleigh who had dumped more than $1 million of his own money into a primary challenge to Senator Thom Tillis, who was accusing Thom Tillis of not being conservative enough. So Tucker now out of the race, but that still has had a lasting effect. I was at a Donald Trump rally in September where Tillis was announced on stage. Tillis has gotten a lot of support from Donald Trump. Tillis was announced on stage and the crowd booed him. That's certainly not a place that you want to be as a incumbent Republican senator up for re-election. Beyond that, we know that there's a stable of Democratic challengers, one endorsed by the DSCC, Cal Cunningham, who's been raising a ton of money. He's going to have a sizable war chest once they get past the March primary.
Nick Ochsner, thanks for joining us, Nick.
Thanks a lot.